So I'm not gonna lie, I had half a mind not to even make a video on this because I felt like this was a given originally, but we also have to consider the fact how far we've come since the first time we got news about Cam Newton joining the New England Patriots. Now guys, really quickly before we get to the news, I live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 9 p.m. Pacific time, and if you've been following this account for the past 2 to 3 days, you'd understand that I'm going through some stuff with YouTube in terms of some of my best content getting demonetized, like my 22 plus minute documentaries have all been getting demonetized, so make sure you turn on my notifications because when a channel gets demonetized, you don't get notified when that channel posts content. Now that we got all of that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Now look, I think you guys didn't really need to click on the video in order to understand what's going on with Cam Newton and the Patriots. Today was a very monumental day in Cam Newton's comeback as a football player, because if you guys go back to when he originally got signed to the New England Patriots in the beginning of July, the language was very clear. Cam Newton was being signed and he was treated as if he's a huge if situation. You know, he's going to come into the New England Patriots, and if Cam Newton is going to be able to work through his injury issues, if he's going to be able to get fully healthy, then he may have a chance at surviving as the New England Patriots starting QB. Now, he was signed to a very tiny contract, but if you don't get an idea of how bad his situation was, look at the way his former owner, or the owner of his former team, described him when they were discussing the possibility of him remaining a Panther even before he got signed. Now, the second part is something that I was very interested in, but the first part's the stuff that applies to us, so I'm gonna say both. David Tepper, the owner of the Carolina Panthers, said back in February in regards to Cam Newton's future with the Carolina Panthers is, listen, I'm not a doctor. I said it a million times, is he healthy? He's not a doctor, so there's a lot of things that can happen, but first, is he healthy? Tell me that and then we can talk. Now, here's the thing that I think is really fascinating, because I believe every time there's an interview, there's the face that people put on for the media, and sometimes the truth will slip through the cracks. And it's crazy because moving on forward, Cam Newton said what's really going on. And if you guys paid attention to my content in the past, I've said this many times, and it's a narrative that I want you guys to understand in the NFL, because we've seen this happen a lot. More recently with Josh Rosen, and even more recently with Cam Newton. Whenever the regime that drafted you originally moves on, and there's an excuse for them to move on from you as a QB, they're gonna do it. And we've seen that happen more recently with Josh Rosen. He was drafted with a top pick in the 2018 NFL draft. And then a year later, the Arizona Cardinals hired Cliff Kingsbury and moved on from Steve Wilkes and drafted Kyler Murray with the #1 overall pick in the 2019 NFL draft. They traded Josh Rosen over to the Miami Dolphins and were fine with the fact that they completely wasted a first-round pick. Now, it's kind of sad because Josh Rosen's currently in trade rumors once again. The Miami Dolphins are trying to move on from him, and hopefully he finds a good team for himself. But listen to what Cam Newton says here in regards to regime changes, saying, it's devastating to not have the coach who drafted you, but at the same time, you've got to turn the page. I had an unbelievable conversation with Marty Herney, the GM, David Tepper, the owner, and Matt Rule, the new head coach. I left that meeting inspired, and I told them, you won't find another person in that locker room with more to prove, not only to you, but I've got to prove to myself. Now, of course, this was months and months and months ago. And more recently, when the Patriots signed him, it seemed as if, Cam Newton was a dream scenario. Even if he is able to come back, is he going to be able to stay healthy? He hasn't been able to stay healthy for so long. How is this 6'5" quarterback that's a scrambling QB that is used to taking a lot of hits, that needs to run in order to survive because he has horrendous arm accuracy and doesn't really have a great ability and a great knack to throw it down the field? How is this player going to be able to be named the starting quarterback for any team? Well, he came into the New England Patriots system, and Bill Belichick made him earn his stripes, and it all culminated in Cam Newton not only being named as the starter for the New England Patriots this season, but he's also named as a captain for the New England Patriots this season. Now look, again, a lot of you guys thought this was a given. A lot of you guys thought that this was definitely going to happen. I didn't think so. I thought that he had a lot to prove injury-wise. But regardless, whether Cam Newton is healthy or not, the Patriots have another huge issue on their hands. Yes, they have Cam Newton at the quarterback position. Yes, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how they're going to scheme around a running quarterback and a scrambling quarterback, especially with two brilliant football minds in Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick. But the one thing that I'm personally really curious about is, how are they going to do this when Cam Newton doesn't have much to work with on the offensive side of the ball? Like, just by looking at the New England Patriots depth chart, I'll tell you who Cam Newton's best receiving options are. You have Julian Edelman, who's his top option, and then you have James White. Honestly, that's about it. On the New England Patriots offense, the only players that I actually see providing any value at all this season whatsoever is Cam Newton, Sony Michel, James White, Julian Edelman, and maybe N'Keal Harry, their first-round pick from last year, who's a wide receiver, takes the next step. Again, this is a team that just cut Mohamed Sanu. Now, they could have cut Mohamed Sanu because they saw something they liked out of N'Keal Harry, but when you consider the fact that last year, their focal point and the way they made their living was on defense, the only defensive playmakers that are returning this year are the McCourties and Stephon Gilmore. They don't have Dante Hightower on the defensive side of the ball. Their pass rush remains pedestrian at best. And there is a part of me that's thinking, okay, there's some things that are off about this Patriots team, but they have Bill Belichick as their head coach. But if you paid attention last year, offensively, this team stagnated as well. Even with Tom Brady underneath center, playing like Tom Brady typically does, giving you a Tom Brady-like season, not even he was able to get this offense rolling last year. So what makes you think by inserting Cam Newton in the lineup with a bunch of spare parts and, of course, brilliant coaching, that this team is going to be able to even sniff the playoffs? I think this is going to be a season where the Patriots take a minor step back, and it's about time. The evil empire has been dominating for the past 20 years. Now, in the comment section down below, feel free to let me know how far you think this team's going to go. What do you think the Patriots' record is going to be this season? Personally, I see a 6-10 being the worst, and I see a 9-7 or a 10-6 being the best. Now, of course, 10-6 means they make it to the playoffs, but hell, it's going to be a pretty interesting season with the COVID pandemic and everything taken into consideration as well. Aside from that, I am so happy for Cam Newton. I think no matter what happens, he's going to have a remarkable season as the quarterback for the New England Patriots. I think individually he's going to do really well. I just don't think the team's going to do really well. And that has nothing to do with Cam. There's way bigger issues stemming further than just the quarterback position. I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.